very good evening. Thank you so much for tuning in and welcome to the second edition of News Tonight. It's me, Michael Jordan Lukomwa. President Yoweri Museveni has reiterated his warning to people living in wetlands, urging them to leave immediately. The president was speaking at the closure of the third annual SDG conference held at Speak Resort in Munyonyo. His warning comes at a time when the National Environment Management Authority, NEMA, is evicting people who had encroached on Luigi wetland.
President Yoweri Museveni, who had turned up to officially close the third annual SDG conference, seized the opportunity to castigate people who are criticizing the ongoing evictions of people from wetlands by National Environment Management Authority.
Why should you need a NEMA to be the one to stop you as if you are an idiot? Of course, I don't know why NEMA doesn't stop, but even NEMA should not take on that responsibility. Because the NEMA can't, do they have enough employees? I don't think so.
The president said the ongoing evictions by NEMA should have happened long ago if it was not for some local leaders who collude with people who encroach on wetlands.
The NEMA should work through the local governments. Just tell the Muruka chief, if you find anybody in the swamp, we shall go for you. For the Muruka chief and the Gombora chief. Because they are the ones who live there. Why don't they stop these people? I have already written an executive order, I think, mentioning this. I don't know why it was not followed up. Now, when you hear these people claiming, oh, this one, they have been there for a long time, how? I fought in the Royal Triangle. I know every swamp there. I fought at the Riviera when I was capturing camp. There was nobody in the swamp.
The third annual SDG conference focused on highlighting Uganda's development journey in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. The president said Uganda is on the right path of development, but labeled corruption as being the biggest stumbling block in achieving the desired socio-economic transformation.
Because we cannot let down our people down. The other day we were celebrating the Heroes' Day, people who died to save our country and to develop it, but you get money being diverted by corrupt people. I think the IGG has estimated 10 trillion shillings being diverted from development. That money is 10 trillion per year. In 5 years, we would tarmac all the roads that we need to tarmac.
Susan Ngongi Namondo, the UN resident coordinator in Uganda, warned that the Ugandan government risks losing its international development partners if corruption is not dealt with urgently.
The unfortunate stories that we read in newspapers about mismanagement of public funds not only impacts value for money in terms of the taxpayers, but also discourages potential inflow of other development financing, such as grants.
At this event, Uganda Third Voluntary National Review Report and the Leave No One Behind Assessment Report were launched.
This year's SDG conference is focusing on Uganda's Third Voluntary National Review Report to be presented at the high-level political forum in New York in July this year. Your Excellency, I wrote to you last month informing you about Uganda's confirmation among the 38 countries to present her third voluntary review report during the United Nations High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development.
From this conference, the Leave No One Behind Assessment Report highlighted a reduction in Uganda's poverty rate from 45% to 20% due to the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Diano Olwen Peters, UBC News in Kampala.
The operation to open and unblock water channels under the Luigi wetland restoration exercise, supervised by Wilberforce Wanyama, has kicked off under tight security. During the exercise, some angry evictees attacked and injured one journalist, Abu Batusa, and destroyed his camera. Police managed to arrest several gang members involved in the attack.
Blocking channels that had been diverting water from its original flow in Lubiji area has begun amidst tight security. During the operation, some individuals attacked a journalist, injured him, and also destroyed his equipment.
Kati bwakuze nakwata ekiyinja wansi n'akiwuba bw'ati akinkube bw'akiwubye bw'ati nansindika mu mwala guno omufuleje kamera n'engwamu ne kamera n'enjisimba mu mazzi.
Police successfully apprehended some of the attackers. The channel opening and unblocking is part of a broader restoration exercise for the degraded section of Lubiji wetland. This involves removing maram and construction debris to allow the wetland to naturally regenerate.
When you remove them and you allow water to settle, this wetland will regenerate. And we are going to plant some of the wetland species here, like commonly, like we have been seeing papyrus, rhizomes. We are going to plant them here, and this wetland will regenerate.
According to Wilberforce Wanyama, the officer in charge of monitoring and enforcement at the Ministry of Environment, the restoration will follow all the planned phases. The restoration exercise aims at rehabilitating approximately 1,526 hectares of the degraded wetland in Lubiji. However, so far 20% of the area has been restored.
So in total, we intend to restore 1,526 hectares of the wetland, which is degraded in Lubiji here. So far we have covered like 20%, like around 400 to 300 hectares. So we still have a long way to go, and it will take us maybe for the next 2-3 weeks to have all the work done.
According to the environmental restoration laws, the cost of restoring the degraded wetland are borne by the individuals responsible for the degradation. Upon completion of the eviction, NEMA will advise on how to pass on the incurred costs to the degraders.
Ideally, we are supposed to pass on the cost we have incurred here to all these people who encroach on this wetland. That's what the law says. So it will be now upon the government or Attorney General to see if they can pass on the cost we have incurred to the occupants of these places.
All those occupying the Gazette wetlands have been asked to vacate voluntarily. Wanyama noted that a few developers whose activities have not been interrupted are in compliance with the environmental policies, except for a few whom they have formally notified.
Some people are asking, why is it that NEMA is so selective? For example, when you look at the Starbucks, half of it is in a wetland. When you look at the other one of Uganda land, Kombucha, they are totally in the middle of the swamp.
To a few of them that have tried to go beyond the approved areas, we have already written to them to correct their mistakes, and they are complying.
Individuals seeking litigation in courts of law have been advised to proceed in accordance with the law.
We are not worried because the people are exercising their rights, but most of them, when you check, they don't have any legal basis for those suits. You find somebody, it is a wetland, and he claims that he has been here since 1970. But for us, we have images of these places in 1970 when it was an intact wetland. So those are the evidences we are going to prove against those people.
The phased eviction that started on 24th May will continue uninterrupted and is expected to expand to other parts of Kampala and its surroundings. Subsequently, the operation will expand to other parts of the country, beginning with eastern Uganda. However, Busoga and Kigezi region have been exempted. Susan Naung and Stephen Kalisha reporting for EBC TV.
First Lady Mrs. Janet Museveni has expressed appreciation for the mission evangelist Daniel Kolenda and his team from the Christ for All Nations Ministry for blessing Uganda with their gospel crusades as they celebrate 50 years of ministry.
The delegation, led by Christ for All Nations President and CEO Evangelist Daniel Kolenda, included Brett Speck, the Executive Director, Brandy Liet, the Senior Director, Lydia Kolenda's 12-year-old daughter, Rob Eng, his personal assistant, and Pastor Kalaji, the coordinator for Christ for All Nations Ministry in Uganda. The team has been in Uganda conducting gospel crusades in different areas around the country and training hundreds of believers on how to become soul winners since the 12th of June.
thank you so much that you thought of coming to Uganda on your 50 years celebrations, and you gave us so much time to stop different places and give God's messages to our people. You're a blessing to us. We bless you while you are here. We will pray while you're still here that God will bless your travel inside Uganda and bless your message to our people.
Over the past 2 weeks, 7 major crusades have been held in Lira, Gulu, Hoima, Mbare, Tororo, Busia, Iganga, Kampala, and other locations where the mighty hand of the Lord has been witnessed at work. Mrs. Museveni said that she believes the message and blessing from God being shared with Ugandans in the gospel crusades around the corner comes at the right time.
Praying, we are preparing for our own coming elections in 2 years. So having you here for this time, for me, I believe it's a message from God.
Evangelist Kolenda, the successor of the world-renowned evangelist Reinhard Bonnke, said that Uganda holds a very special place in their hearts and that they love Uganda and its people very much.
On the last night of each campaign, we pray very specially for the blessing of the nation and for you and for your whole team by name in front of everyone, and they all resound with a mighty amen as we pray for God's blessings. I believe the Lord hears those prayers. I believe that he will answer those prayers and is already answering those prayers. So consider us friends, consider us family, wherever we go from this day forward.
Christ for All Nations Ministry plans to conduct 50 crusades in African countries, including South Africa, Congo, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Egypt, and Uganda, among others. And of these, Uganda takes the lion's share. Reporting for UBC, Baguma William.
Works and Transport Minister General Katumba Wamala has urged government agencies and NGOs to work together to ensure adequate service delivery to Ugandans. Katumba was in Buyala MPG at the graduation ceremony of 20 UPDF soldiers who have been trained to operate ferries through water transport.
For approximately 6 months, a group of UPDF soldiers have been undergoing training on how to operate ferries and monitor activities on water. UNRA, in partnership with the Ministry of Works and Transport, have released 20 UPDF soldiers who have specialized in marine and ferry operations. During the release of these soldiers, Minister of Works and Transport General Katumba Wamala urged government agencies to work together to deliver adequate services to the people.
Development, not only for the country but also for the UPDF, to have this skill within their ranks so that they can be able to operate in their own environment. Just like what you saw when we went to operate in Congo, in Operation Suja, we had to cross River Semiriki and they didn't have capacity to do that. So we had to send the civilian operators from UNRWA, who of course were operating in an environment which was very strange for them.
General Katumba is optimistic that even if these soldiers retire, the skills acquired will be economically viable for them.
Developments again in the water transport. We are going to rehabilitate Port Bell, we are going to rehabilitate Ginger Pire, but we are also starting the construction of Bukasa Port, so that in future, as you have seen, possibly if you have been detecting, Tanzania is developing a lot of its infrastructure in terms of standard gauge and what, so they will soon be bringing a lot of cargo from Dar es Salaam port.
UNRWA Director of Roads John Bosco Sajemba says, although ferries were handed over to the UPDF, there was need for the soldiers to obtain skills of operating them.
But when a minister, we train them safely and no one fell into the water. They are all here. And we have seen how they can operate this vessel themselves. There is no UNRWA staff who has been put in uniform, but these are the people whom we trained and they are able to operate these ferries.
Mountain Division Operations and Training Colonel Godfrey Chomhendo cited that the skills obtained by the officers will enable them to handle the enemy on water.
This has increased on our capability to move our logistics and troops, which is a force multiplier towards the fight.
The UPDF has soldiers who dive and monitor activities on water, while some units are involved in various activities, including construction and others. Rebecca Natongo, Mike Bakabulindi, UBC News.
On the 30th of March 2023, the Minister for Health, Dr. Jane Ruth Acheng, in company with Minister for ICT and National Guidance, Chris Bariomonsi, commissioned the renovation and expansion works for Kambuga Hospital in Kanungu District. Despite diligent works by UPDF Engineers Brigade, there is slow progress due to financial advisement, impact of poor road network and length distance in transportation of materials.
Kambuga Hospital, built in 1965, has been in a very sorry state despite serving a large community. This busy government hospital provides primary care services to about 250,000 people, most of whom live in rural settings. The hospital's refurbishment was one of the key priorities in the Ministry of Health's strategic plan for 2020-2025. The upgrade was expected to cost 43 billion shillings, with 30 billion shillings allocated for civil construction work by the UPDF Engineers Brigade and 13 billion shillings for hospital equipment.
We were allocated 43 billion shillings as a hospital for refurbishment and the equipment. We've so far received 3.2 billion shillings, and that 3.2 billion shillings is working on construction of a new theatre and the construction of a half block for the staff.
Currently, civil construction works are being carried out gradually to allow the hospital to continue its operations. In 2023-2024 financial year, the government pledged 43 billion shillings for the refurbishment of the maternity ward, female, male, pediatric wards, OPD, X-ray block, 4 staff house blocks, the theatre block, the surgical block, and the construction of a new standard main hospital block. However, only 3.2 billion shillings were remitted to Kanungu district account in 2023-2024 financial year.
As the community in Kanungu, we are wondering, because I was looking at the budget 2024-2025, I didn't see the money for the remaining money for the other work that is supposed to be done in Kambuga General Hospital.
They should release funds for the UPDF timely, because I know it is the central government which releases the money to the engineering brigade. If they are given money and it is raised timely, I hope they will do a wonderful work for us.
The hospital currently serves the districts of Kanungu, Lukunjiri, Luchiga, and parts of the neighboring DRC.
To the Ministry of Health, to Ministry of Finance, to avail resources so that there is no stoppage time.
It is refurbishment of Kambuga General Hospital, and currently we are handling staff accommodations, 16 in number, and the new theatre.
The construction work of Kambuga Hospital by the UPDF Engineers Brigade is crucial, as it's the only referral hospital for the districts of Rukunjiri and Kanungu.
We serve the population, part of the population of Rukunjiri, the Bwambara area, and around the Rwerere. We also serve that region, the population of Chisizi, Nyakishenyi, to this side, and then parts of Ruchiga.
Therefore, its refurbishment will significantly ease service delivery. Haruna Mtesasila, UBC News.
Women entrepreneurs in Rampara district operating under Enterprise Uganda have trained in various business ventures and skills with an aim with an aim of building their income capabilities. This one-day workshop has been graced by the Youth and Children Affairs Minister Balambargar.
Guno gwe musomo gutegekeddwa omubaka Amos Kakumba ogubangudde omusomo guno gwetabiddwa
amanya gange nze Namutebi Sharon nga nkolera wano wennyini Saka Kirombe oba Makindye. Empangula gye nawanguddemu ssente mbadde nga nkozesa mobile money nga nsindika school fees w'omwana ku ssomero. Okutegeera nti mpangudde nze mutima neegambye nti kambalinde bamale okujja ndyoke nzikirize nti mpangudde. Kyennyinza okubagamba nti si byabafere weewaawo abafere gye bali naye ennamba eri emu yokka era bw'eba ekukubidde omanya eyo si yabafere. Mpulira bulungi nnyo 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 era ndi musanyufu nnyo. Naye MTN mobile money mbebaza nnyo mwebale nnyo mwebalire.
Together we're unstoppable. Gold. We all want it. That soft yellow glow, the subdued sun in your hands. That precious polish of elegance. To hold it is one thing, but to taste it is everything else. Relish the satisfying taste of a beer, unmatched in quality, unmatched in consistency, and with 23 Global Gold Awards. A beer unmatched in gold.
UBC News Tonight. The Permanent Secretary in Ministry of Health, Dr. Diana Twene, is calling upon expectant mothers and the general public to prioritize early antenatal visits to help reduce on the high burden of congenital anomalies in the country. Dr. Twene made the remarks during a meeting organized by the Ministry of Health to raise awareness about congenital anomalies such as hydrocephalus, cleft lip, spina bifida, and among others. These videos have some pictures that you may not want to look at. Please carefully watch it.
Die shortly after birth, at birth, or before they are born.
Genital anomalies are a global issue. Every year, an estimated 8 million children are born with serious birth defects. Of these, 3.3 million children under the age of 5 die from the defects, and 3.2 million who survive may be disabled for life. Notably, 90% of these cases occur in middle and low-income countries. In response, the Ministry of Health organized a meeting to raise awareness about the birth defects and to find lasting solutions to this burden in the country. Dr. Diana Twene, the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Health, emphasized that the ministry is working to integrate birth defects treatments into health system. She highlighted that with simple interventions and early detection, many of these anomalies can be avoided or corrected.
Folic acid is a miracle medicine. Folic acid is a very simple tablet, but it makes the whole world of change. Quite a number of those folic acid can avert all these complications because folic acid is the one that helps when the organs are beginning to form, especially in the first 3 months. Early antenatal care can really help. And when this child is born, early intervention, like club foot, once you do early intervention, this child will have a normal foot, will walk normally, and will not be discriminated against.
Rubella, we immunize now mothers who are pregnant, and we give them that rubella vaccine. If a mother is pregnant and gets rubella, that child will be born blind and deaf. But if you immunize that mother for rubella, I think you prevent that defect of blindness and deafness in those children.
Dr. Atwine also advised the general public to undergo marriage screening, particularly for sickle cell disease, to help reduce the high burden of the condition in the country.
Marriage counseling on sickle cell need to be really elevated to another level, so that we start testing those who are intending to marry, to test, so that we prevent. If you are a carrier, don't marry even if you fall in love. Please take, just to know that tomorrow that love will melt, and then you suffer with the sicklers in your home.
The bigger burden, as per the reports, is from Bugisu, Kampala, and the North Central region.
Health experts indicate that the problem of congenital anomalies in developing countries, particularly Uganda, has not attracted much attention. Limited research in this field further complicates government planning and budgeting to address the issue. Zahara Abigaba, UBC News.
Former Prime Minister Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda wants government to invest more in matters pertaining to mental health care as a remedy to ever-increasing cases of victims of suicide. Dr. Rugunda's quest is hinged on the fact that depression, one of the leading causes of suicide, is among the least diagnosed diseases due to the scarcity of psychiatrists in the country. Currently, there are only 53 psychiatrists in Uganda.
Exactly 3 weeks ago, the Babirukamu family suffered a calamity when they lost one of their own, John Babirukamu, who was just 2 months shy of his 40th birthday. Unverified reports suggest that John Babirukamu struggled and later lost the battle to depression that pushed him into committing suicide by jumping off a building in Kampala on 31st May this year. John Babirukamu forms part of the annual statistics of the 18 per 100,000 deaths due to suicide in Uganda.
Depression is sickness. He must have been deeply depressed that led him to do what he was doing. We should know that depression is very rampant among young people. And young people do not want to speak, and they want to kind of cope with what they are going through, and it ends up in that situation.
There are reports that expose males as the most affected gender when it comes to depression and later suicide. Citing outdated societal beliefs that portray men as beings that are immune to pain and failure, the Prime Minister Emeritus, Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda, makes a clarion call for all humans to outgrow this fear and learn to open up, especially when faced with problems.
So that society, family, medical experts can work with them to solve those problems.
On this, Collins, one of the Babirukamus, fully agrees.
It's not important to just step up for society and try to look brave, try to look successful, try to look okay. If you have an issue, put your hand up, raise your hand and say something to get help. Get a band of brothers and be accountable wherever you can.
It is important to note that Uganda has a desert of mental health service providers with a forest of depression cases.
The problem now is that even if you have got mental illness, it's difficult to get access to either a psychiatrist or an expert in mental illness. So you suffer in your house, in your office, in your village.
It is for this reason that the former Prime Minister, Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda, wants government to prioritize mental health care by investing in training of psychiatric professionals.
Our society needs to be better educated about mental illness and to know that this is a problem which is widespread, which is underdiagnosed, and that we need more information about it, how it can be treated, and how it can be prevented.
This was at the sidelines of a tribute by members of the Greater Kigezi Dioceses to the Babirukamuns in their Kampala-based home in Magere. Dorcas Kimono, UBC News.
Still to do with mental health, experts are advocating for a multi-sectoral approach in preventing mental health problems by strengthening provision of counseling and treatment services. In 2023, a report released by Uganda Counseling Association and Ministry of Health showed that 14 million Ugandans are mentally sick.
Mental health generally refers to emotional, psychological, and social well-being of an individual. However, life pressures and different events and experiences, according to health experts, are fueling mental health cases. According to World Health Organization, mental disorders vary and present in different ways and characterized by a combination of abnormal thoughts, perceptions, emotions, and behavior.
See, mental illness is about the nerves which are in the brain, which have chemicals that are used to move messages, but these go wrong. Some chemicals are secreted in excess, some chemicals are secreted in lower quantities, and it's that discrepancy in the levels of these chemicals that causes people to develop problems.
Now, St. Ramos Wisdom Charity Foundation has reached out to International University of East Africa as part of their wider program to assist young people to learn how to deal with different life stressors.
You have heard of alcohol substance abuse in these learning institutions. It's very, very high. As per statistics, we see in referral hospitals. Number two, you have heard of many suicidal cases, young men throwing themselves over buildings. You have heard, and all this is because of the stressors in their environment. It's about depression. It's about the anxieties, what they are going through at the university. So we are here to share with them, to alert them about what mental health is, how would you know that it has gone astray, and what would you do?
To spread it more in schools, to spread it more in communities. Awareness should be increased. They should really put something big for people to understand what is causing mental health to our society, the lifestyle, and discipline. And also parents at home should create time to their kids, talk to them.
George Victor Otieno, a student, appreciated this initiative, stressing that many young people are facing different situations that affect their mental well-being.
Well, I think it is very, very important, not only for institutions, but also starting from families and our circles of relationship as friendships, that we need to have safe spaces and circles where we can share our deep emotions. So at times, you see, they say a problem shared is half solved. And I would make a call for all institutions, mainly institutions of higher learning, because this is where we have a high concentration of young people. It is very, very imperative to have persons where young people can go to share their problems and not feel judged, but also given hope.
In 2023, Uganda Counseling Association, in collaboration with the Ministry of Health, released a report that showed that 14 million Ugandans are battling with mental illness. This means that in every 100 people, 35 of them have a mental health-related problem. Adia Nakuti, UBC.
Refugees living in Uganda have been told to embrace peaceful coexistence and avoid tribal differences. Their officials say will promote harmony amongst themselves and by extension with host communities in Uganda. Said Minister for Refugees Lilian Aber sounded this during the Refugee Day celebrations at Rhino Camp Refugee Settlement in the West Nile district of Terego, northern Uganda. Aber joined others in calling for more international support towards refugee management in Uganda, which she said is dwindling.
Again have the mindset of what drove them out of their country, of having conflict on tribal basis, on blah, 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 all these issues. We should just embrace unity. You know, sometimes people find themselves in one camp, and they already had their internal wrangles from the countries where they are coming from, and they want to carry it forward. This is what we are trying to say. Please leave conflict, because you came in search for peace, and Uganda has given you, the peace and the environment to settle in. So let's not again bring in those minor conflicts.
The fact that Uganda has been hosting refugees for several decades doesn't mean that all refugees here are protracted refugees. That is why it's very concerning, the reduction in food ration. Like I said in my remarks, at 80% of the refugee population in settlements are given 30% of the food ration, which is the lowest in the region.
That's why we are saying, donors, please increase the funding. Let's not reduce on the portion for feeding refugees. Let's increase funding, and we see how to, capitalize on livelihood support. People to have hands-on skill training and have something to start surviving on. So all these things are coupled under issue of resources, but hopefully it will get better. But as Uganda government, we are committed to fulfilling our obligation of being a home to the refugees.
To support the host communities where refugees are. So that is not part of the humanitarian funding. Humanitarian funding is actually going down, but somehow if we are able to utilize it properly, it could be counterbalanced by development funding for refugee hosting areas, which is going up.
We thank you so much for watching. Let's take a short break. Return with business news tonight.
Cheers to something refreshingly different. Putting the brakes on a fast-paced world. Slowing down. Just enough to stand out. Cheers to the beer that does it differently. Brewed longer for extra refreshment. Refreshingly Club. Alcohol is not for sale to persons under 18. Please drink responsibly.
Stay fresh. You wanna compete? Tell it be my get. Lighting. I did make a lighting up.
Over 800 billion shillings is set to be injected into the agricultural sector through various cooperatives across Uganda to address the challenges posed by climate change. The initiative follows a memorandum of understanding signed by the Uganda Cooperative Alliance, Equity Bank and the International Fund for Agricultural Development, aiming at engaging farmers in combating climate change.
Uganda is experiencing significant impacts from climate change, including changing weather patterns, decreasing water levels, and an increased frequency of extreme weather events, such as floods and drought. These events have severe economic impacts, making communities highly vulnerable. Despite the profound impacts of climate change on human life, insufficient actions have been taken to address the challenge. In responding to this, the Uganda Cooperative Alliance, Equity Bank and IFAD have signed a memorandum of understanding to engage smallholder farmers in tackling climate change.
So there is a lot that we are going to do, and I want to thank the government of Uganda for their positivity and for the support to this program. So we shall do a lot in ensuring that we have food security, number one. Number two, we have an inclusive and sustainable socio-economic transformation. And then together, we cause a paradigm shift in this country.
The Memorandum of Understanding signed in Kampala was allocated over 800 billion shillings to smallholder farmers through various cooperatives over a period of 12 years.
United States dollars 300,000 for the main ACAFIM project, which is going to be a 12-year project. The total amount is United States dollars 200 million. 180 million is for the lending, and the $20 million is for technical advisory assistance. This is going to be implemented in the East African region: Equity Bank Kenya, Equity Bank Tanzania, Equity Bank Rwanda, and Equity Bank Uganda.
This money is specific for climate adaptation. The funding is tailored to mitigate the environmental risks. Green financing, that is a major focus. Integrated agriculture, surviving drought, surviving floods, even using energy-saving equipment.
The project aims at engaging farmers across the country through cooperatives, and Ivan Asime, the Secretary Regional Uganda Cooperative Alliance, is optimistic about the outcomes of the initiative.
Most of the land is no longer fertile. There is too much sunshine outside there. The floods are destroying our crops and animals. How do we adapt to this change? So, the most important thing is for people to have the information which is going to be done through capacity building, and for people to access financing, so that if I want maybe to change from a traditional way of grazing cows, instead of having 200 cows on a small piece of land, then I would rather have 2 or 5 cows that are producing a lot of milk.
The signing of the MOU was attended by the State Minister for Cooperatives, Gome Gobi, who urged farmers to make good use of these funds. Minister Gome also advocated for low interest rates for the farmers who will borrow the funds.
Issues at what interest rate? The interest rate should be minimal, because we are looking at the grassroots people. You are not looking at these big people who own Sheraton to give them interest rates at 30%.
Deborah Namamonde, Tanaba Kenneth, UBC News.
State Minister for Gender and Culture, Peace Mutuzo, has emphasized the need to phase out affirmative action concerning female representation in Parliament, stating that women have reached the 35% target. She advocates for sharing all positions equally, 50 by 50 with men, especially in decision-making roles. Minister Mutuzo expressed this during her when giving her speech at the National Gender Forum organized by FIDA, celebrating its 50th anniversary.
Stakeholders advocating for women's rights convened in the National Gender Forum to discuss issues affecting women and strategies to address these challenges. The meeting, held in Kampala under the theme "From Commitment to Investment, Accelerating the Achievement of Sustainable Development Goal 5, provided a platform for advocates to share their views on bridging gender imbalances in line with Sustainable Development Goal 5.
The Divorce Act, the Marriage Act, these are colonial laws. They were passed in 1904, but up to now, the Parliament has failed to prioritize amending these laws. We have been tasking government to provide us with the national gender audit, because it is the national gender audit that gives us more prudence in how government uses public resources to offer us equality.
Legal reform must always be coupled with improved access to justice for women through informal and informal justice systems.
State Minister for Gender and Culture, Peace Mutuzo, highlighted the government's efforts towards promoting women's rights.
These include, among others, the PDM, which reserves 30% for women, generating productivity and growth opportunities for women enterprises grow,
While women have been empowered in leadership, Minister Mutuzo stresses the need for more women to occupy leadership positions.
It was important at that time to open up a small space of 30%. But we have now seen women struggling within the 30% and ending up hitting themselves crazy. So rather open all the space where we have 50% of the representation, but in all the political spaces. We are not asking for more, we are always asking for what we deserve. Above all, we're more than 51% of the total population, so 50 is really given in that percentage.
Minister Mutuzo applauded FIDA Uganda for its advocacy for women's rights, however called for enhancement measures. To further advocate for these rights, Mutuzo pinned out that empowering women and girls has also created a gap between men and women, which needs to be addressed. Dr. Sarah Sally, a keynote speaker at the event, and a social scientist from Makerere University, also shared her insights.
The violence that comes with conflict situations, as we saw in northern Uganda, makes it very difficult for one to even reconsider gender equality laws.
The conference coincided with FIDA Uganda's 50 years anniversary of advocating for women's rights.
Justice for women is justice for all. Empowering women is empowering society. Breaking barriers is building a gender-just society.
That says gender equality is not a concept, it is a practice. May we practice what we preach, even in our homes.
Deborah Namamonde, UBC News.
Leaders and businesswomen in the Karamoja sub-region have commended President Museveni for prioritizing women's development initiatives in the region. The commendation was made during an information sharing session for women entrepreneurs in Karamoja about the generating growth opportunities and productivity for women enterprises project. The session was organized by the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development in Moroto District.
GROW project is a 5-year initiative financed by a $217 million grant from the World Bank targeting female-owned enterprises, including those owned by refugees. The State Minister for Labour, Employment and Industries, Esther Davinia Anyakun, officiated the function.
To tell them, for example, if you're a commercial farmer and you take the money, you're able maybe to buy a tractor, then you do mechanization of your own farm. Other women will be able to do. There are so many of them who have been trying business in one way or the other. So we really appreciate that GROW has been launched here today. And the 500 women who are here today under one roof have understood what the project is.
The State Minister for Ethics and Integrity, Roslily Akelo, also had a message for the women in Karamoja.
Hold this GROW project with one heart so that we can also match with the rest of the country. Because this GROW project is bringing so many opportunities. You can have a shop, you can have a milling machine, you can do fuel, you can do even agriculture, commercial agriculture, you can have selling of produce.
Women and members of parliament from Karamoja commended President Museveni for his efforts in women empowerment and called for the prioritization of the rights of the beneficiaries.
Use women whom their husbands left guns. They are doing small business in Carita Center, in Amudat, in Loro, where they go and make some tea on the market days, like tea what. When they heard of GROW program, they are very happy.
For me, as a leader, my interest is to make sure women grow their businesses.
Are going to talk to our people hardly enough to give them that project don't change your life, money don't change your life, but it is the money you make from the project yourself that changes your life.
Meanwhile, the Commissioner for Youth and Children at the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Fred Ngabirano, warned community development officers against soliciting legal charges from beneficiaries of the GROW project.
Also you and warn you that this GROW money is not like YOP, like in yoga, like where some of you, either here or in other districts, you would exploit the beneficiaries by asking illegal charges. Whether
The businesses targeted at the project include bricklaying, carpentry, tourism, supplies, construction, ICT and mining, among others.
Uganda's senior men's cricket team, the Cricket Cranes, returned home from the 2024 ICC T20 World Cup to a warm welcome from the cricket community and like mobile. The team played at this stage for the first time and got one win from its 4 games, finishing 4th in the 5-team group.
It was smiles, hugs and warm greetings for the Cricket Cranes as they landed on Ugandan soil after a month of being away at the 2024 ICC T20 World Cup in the West Indies. The team was welcomed by the cricket community in Uganda, like mobile and well-wishers. Uganda was at the ICC T20 Men's World Cup for the first time and it played 4 games, losing 3 and getting a historic win against PNG.
It was a good experience, you know, playing at the highest level, playing with your role models and playing competitive cricket.
I had a great experience getting to play against the great players, and interacting with them was fun for me.
Uganda finished 4th in the group of 5 with notable milestones from captain Brian Masaba, veteran Frank Nsubuga boasting the best economy rate in the tournament, and Riyazat Alisha getting a Man of Match award in the game against PNG.
It was a very special moment, obviously. Uganda appearing at the first World Cup. The whole general experience was very good, not just for me personally, but for us as a team. Interacting with the best players in the world, learning from them, just watching them and how they go about their business, and just being in the whole World Cup environment was a very eye-opening experience for us. But personally, for me, it was a great honor leading the team to the World Cup and also picking up a win there.
Personally, I feel good, and even after bowling like that, I didn't know that was the world record. And when they told me, I said, hey. I was so happy, and yes, I'm very happy about that and about those figures. I'm so happy.
With her performance, Uganda is assured to get $225,000 a participation bonus and $31,000 a winning bonus for their win against PNG. In an interesting turn of event, the Cricket Cranes skipper who led the team to the World Cup stepped down from the T20 internationals and the captaincy immediately after landing in Uganda.
On that note, I'll take this moment to announce that stepping down from the captaincy and T20 eyes.
Masaba captained the Cricket Cranes for 5 years, winning 50 competitive games out of the many the team played. Though he's hung up his gloves for the T20 format, Brian Masaba remains available for the 50-over format and will be remembered as the first Ugandan captain to take the Cricket Cranes to the T20 World Cup. Grace Joyce Kemigisa, UBC News.
We had for you tonight. Thanking you so much for watching. My name is Michael Jordan Lukomwa. Enjoy the rest of the night. Bye-bye.
UBC, inspiring Uganda. Cheers to something refreshingly different. Putting the brakes on a fast-paced world. Slowing down. Just enough to stand out. Cheers to the beer that does it differently. Brewed longer for extra refreshment. Refreshingly Club. Alcohol is not for sale to persons under 18. Please drink responsibly.
Banyeta ko Muhangi Donata, the chairperson wa group
I am the chairperson of this group that got money. The group is called Kalsandala HIV/AIDS Craftswomen Group. UWEP gave us money in 2017 and they gave us 3.3 million Ugandan shillings. We used it in 1 year and got 23 million out of it. We do baskets and kitchen gardens, and we also have a saving group. We thank UWEP because this money helped us as women. Women can now educate their children and build houses because many of them are single mothers. We work without jealousy because we want to leave a legacy that even those who will be around tomorrow will appreciate.
Taking care of your bones is like giving your body a solid foundation for a healthy and active life. And now, let's dive into practical advice that you can easily weave into your daily routine, ensuring your bones stay strong and support you every step of the way. Number 1. Adequate calcium intake. Calcium is crucial for bone health. Include calcium-rich foods in your diet, such as dairy products, leafy green vegetables, tofu, and fortified foods. If needed, consider calcium supplements, but consult with your